Welcome back to the channel. We're smoking all my dragons, divine righteous, almighty greats, overachieving, never slacking. Today we're flying over to Kent, which this is my first time hearing about Kent. This is top 10 prettiest towns in Kent. Original link will be in the description. Here we go. Let's do it.
Corner of England is the county.
Welcome to Kent.
On the southeastern corner of England is the county of Kent. This county, and former kingdom, is home to many fine towns. But what are its prettiest? To establish this, I've visited them all personally, and my conclusions are presented to you in this top 10 list. As per the rules of this series of videos, cities are included for consideration, though villages are not, as there are just too many of them, and having sifted through over 40 towns, I can promise you there's no filler content in Kent. There may even be a last minute curveball. Anyway, let's get straight to it. Number 10. We start off with a town you can't reach by train, but can reach by London bus, the town of Westerham. To be clear, Westerham is not part of London at all, and neither are any of the following entries. It just so happens that the London buses occasionally venture outside of the boundaries of the capital. This makes Westerham all the more impressive, as when approaching from Bromley, the shift from late Victorian railway-era architecture to Georgian stagecoach-era architecture is pretty much instantaneous. While a statue of 18th century war hero James Wolfe watches over the market square from Westerham Green, other past residents speak to the pedigree of the town, which include William Pitt the Younger and Winston Churchill. All in all, here's a town that may leave you feeling disoriented when you remember you're just half a mile away from the M25. Number 9. Our next entry is a mere 5 miles to the south, and another one that seems out of place this close to the urban sprawl of London, Edenbridge. Here's a town whose centre is comprised almost entirely from one single street, and that street just so happens to feature a handful of fine 15th century timber framed buildings, among others, while in the vicinity is the Grade 1 listed Church of St Peter and St Paul with Norman origins. And with 2 railway stations, it's honestly baffling how this town of around 8,000 residents hasn't been given, shall we say, the Croydon treatment. Not that I'm complaining. Number 8. Next is the market town fondly referred to as the Jewel of the Weald, Tenterden. With the rolling hills of the Weald for a backdrop, this town boasts a fair bit of nature of its own, with trees lining a good portion of the wide high street. Architecturally, the main focal point is St Mildred's Church, featuring a 15th century tower harking back to a time when Tenterden was prospering due to the wool trade. The tower's 4 pinnacles dominate the skyline from multiple angles. Meanwhile, the remaining architecture plays the perfect supporting role in not getting in its way, a concept that's seemingly lost on all post-Second World War architects, for whatever reason.
Give me 2 seconds, guys. My battery's running low. Let me plug it up. Let me get this in order real quick. Let me just plug my charger. I will be right back. Let me say, I am lucky because usually when I do that, what happens is everything will freeze up when I try to plug it back in. So, whew, let's continue the video. It's our lucky day.
Number 7. Here's a town that's about as posh as it sounds, Royal Tunbridge Wells. Whilst the royal prefix is often dropped in everyday use, the town still reflects some of the grandeur that led to Edward VII giving it said prefix in the first place. This is demonstrated most clearly on its most famous street, the Pantiles. It was this street that became the epicenter of the 17th century spa town that emerged following the discovery of the spring that brought the high society here in their droves. Now,
Sparta.
if every street in Tunbridge Wells looked like this, it'd be a contender for the #1 spot. The problem is, they don't. In fact, the town looks more like two towns stitched together. The part north of the station is not without its charm, but let down significantly by what appears to be a construction site in the very centre that's been that way for several years. I won't subject you to a visual, but suffice it to say, the pantiles can only go so far in carrying Tunbridge Wells aesthetically. #6. Now to one of the most isolated towns in Kent, on account of the railway lines all giving it a wide berth, Cranbrook. Whilst not the most famous town in the county by any stretch, Cranbrook was a major player in the cloth trade during the medieval era. Many of the buildings in the town are in fact medieval in origin, though you might not necessarily think it to look at them. This is due to the strange Georgian aversion to exposed timber frames, accounting for much of the unusual cladding seen on several buildings here. The Grade 1 listed Church of St Dunstan dates back to the 13th century, but an architectural highlight that arguably steals the show is this Regency era windmill, giving the town that extra flair of character. #5. And here's another small town that's managed thus far to escape fame. About 5 miles west of the county town of Maidstone is where you'll find West Malling. This is a town brimming with historic buildings of all kinds, from medieval timber-framed cottages to Georgian dwellings adorned with ivy, and even a Norman tower whose original purpose remains a mystery. And if that wasn't enough, it even features an ornamental waterfall outside an abbey that was painted in the 18th century by a certain Mr. Turner, a fitting seal of approval for a town that some might say is a work of art in itself. #4. So now we go from a town that very few have heard of to a town whose name is known to pretty much everyone on the planet. Where else but Sandwich? So the town's name became part of the global lexicon after the
That sounds like a very good place to go if you want a sandwich. If you want a good sandwich, go to Sandwich.
4th Earl of Sandwich asked for some meat between two slices of bread, as he was averse to leaving the card table in the middle of a game. Well, that's how the legend goes at least. As far as the history of the town itself goes, well, you could say there's a lot to digest. During the medieval era, this was one of the cinque ports, or five harbours translated from Old French, alluding to England's Norman past. As such, it provided naval vessels to the crown, and in return it received trading privileges and tax exemptions. Adding into the mix an influx of Flemish weavers in the 17th century, and you have this well-preserved town, harking back to eras gone by. You could say there's plenty to sink your teeth into as you loaf around the town. Okay, I'm done. #3. Next up is a city, in everything but name. Courtesy of some bureaucratic incompetence in the 90s, we have the ancient cathedral town of Rochester. The first sight to greet you when visiting Rochester is England's tallest medieval stone keep, and the Norman cathedral just opposite the castle speaks to the ludicrous nature of Rochester's lack of city status since 1998. As for the rest of the town, well, Charles Dickens spent his latter years in Rochester. A number of buildings here were featured in his novels, particularly his final unfinished work, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, which is set in Cloisterham, a thinly veiled Dickensian equivalent of Rochester. All of which makes for the perfect backdrop of the twice yearly Rochester Dickens Festival, even if it has become a tale of no cities. #2. Speaking of which, there is one remaining city in Kent, and here's where I put my head above the parapet and award the runner-up spot to Canterbury. Now, there are very few towns or cities in the UK that can rival Canterbury in terms of historic significance. But in terms of sheer visuals, well, let's start with Canterbury Cathedral. Architecturally magnificent without a doubt, but whereas other cathedrals tend to be out in the open, this one is walled off, and with a hefty entrance fee to boot. Then again, there are plenty of other focal points around the city, such as the West Gate from the 14th century, the Great Gateway of St Augustine's Abbey, and the rather iconic Old Weaver's House, dated circa 1500, one of the most photographed buildings in Canterbury. You also have sections of walkable city walls, but unlike its counterpart Archbishopric in York, the walls in Canterbury look out over a busy ring road. Am I nitpicking? Perhaps, but I'd argue that being awarded the number 2 spot in a county such as Kent is high praise indeed. But while I leave you to speculate for a moment on where the number 1 spot might go to, I should throw in an honourable mention to Broadstairs. You might find it odd that in a county with such a coastline as that of Kent, that no seaside towns have made it onto this list. So to avoid leaving you with the wrong impression, let me just say that Kent has an absolute trove of beach destinations. The standout pick on the sheer visual front, for me, is Broadstairs. Charles Dickens spent many summers here, and even penned a few of his works from this town, no doubt taking inspiration from the majestic sweeping coast. Number 1. And I can reveal that the top spot goes to Canterbury's understated neighbour to the west, Faversham. Lying on the Roman road of Watling Street, the town shares a similarly deep history with Canterbury. While it may not have a cathedral, it is home to St Mary of Charity Church, featuring a distinctive crown spire, and this is just one of well over 300 listed buildings in Faversham, clearly a town that takes its heritage seriously. Then there's the marketplace, which appears not to have changed much in the last 400 years or so, and Standard Quay, once a bustling port, now lined with cafes and independent shops, whilst remaining visually faithful to its past. Heck, even the road leading to the station has managed to escape the late Victorian expansionist aesthetic. So, the moral of the story here is, next time you plan a city break, keep an eye out for the neighbouring towns, just in case. Thus concluding this list of my picks for the top 10 prettiest towns and cities in Kent. By all means, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you'd like to catch up with other counties covered in the series so far, check out the link on the screen now. Thanks for watching and have a great day.
Lot of rich history, a lot of it. To be honest, a lot of these towns really remind me of the Northeast, upstate New York, where I'm from. There's certain towns like Windsor, Waverly. Um, there's a lot of just Corning. There's just a lot of places where it'll remind you of what I just seen. We even have a city called Rochester, which makes me wonder, is it named after the Rochester out in Kent? But so much like iconic, rich history, so much to learn. If you are a historian or just love history, it's just so much to take in when you go and you visit these places. I mean, look at this, look at this, just so much. Now I don't see anything like this castle right here. I don't see anything. If I can find it again. So that castle I just had up. Not sure. Okay, right over here. I don't see anything like that really too much. In upstate New York or I mean PA. I've heard they actually have quite a few things. So I haven't been around PA as much as I think I have. But upstate New York, I don't really hear about too much. It's more so like really nice castle like hotels in upstate New York that'll really give you that feeling like you're somewhere in England, you know? But yeah, very pretty towns. Like I said, rich in history and definitely a place to go and learn a lot. But with that being said, if you love Kent, let me know how much you enjoy Kent in the comments. And I will be back soon. Much love. Everybody enjoy your day.